Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and welcome to the live stream that we do weekly, where we talk about job interviews, resumes, where to discover jobs, recruiters, networking, careers, promotion, salary, all that stuff. Basically, everything that you're wondering about when it comes to getting a job, having a career, and all that kind of stuff. That's what we're here for. This is an interactive live stream, so if you see the chat box, get in the chat if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Also, today, I am trying a bit of an experiment. I did something on the back end that hopefully will fix the issue of people writing comments in the chat that are being filtered out. Okay, that was happening to some people. People were writing legitimate comments that were not showing up in my feed, and they were not showing up just in the YouTube chat. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but YouTube puts a bunch of filters. I've taken some of them off. So we're going to see if that makes any difference today. So if you were one of the people that had your comment filtered out before, hopefully this should fix all that. There are 8 people here today. Thank you for joining me today. And as always, I don't have much of an agenda, if anything, to talk about. I just go off comments. Yusef is here. Like before, watching as usual. Many thanks, sir. You're absolutely welcome, Yusef, and I'm glad you're here. Let me know if you are, excuse me, if you are wondering, God, that was harsh. Excuse me. Let me know if you are struggling with something or wondering about something, and I will do my best to help you out. That's what I'm here for. So I got a couple of comments, and one of the comments that I keep getting, it's a consistent theme, is when it comes to salary, when it comes to the compensation question in job interviews. Usually, if you go to any job interview, it's common that at some point they're going to ask you about compensation. How much should you be paid? What are your compensation expectations? Right? They're going to ask you this in some way, shape, or form. And I got, a lot of people have different thoughts on this. The one thing I get consistently is people saying, just give a high number and be done with it. The problem is that one of the things that they're looking for, and hopefully a lot of you guys know this already, but I can tell that some people don't. One of the things they're looking for is they're looking for a candidate that's not just in it for the money. Now, look, we all know that the whole reason for getting a job is you get paid, right? I mean, that's obvious. You're getting compensation out of it. That's why you do it. We know this. But beyond that, there's a lot of things you could do for money. Some things that you would probably enjoy, that you might find interesting, and some things that you just don't give a rat's ass about, right? That are just boring. You have no interest in it, right? So this question is designed partly to surface which candidate is actually interested in doing this type of work specifically, or they have no interest whatsoever in this. They're just looking for a job, and they have no interest in this job other than the money, okay? And if that's you, they want to eliminate you. They want to weed you out, okay? Because they're looking for people that, yes, they're in it for the money, but they're also into doing this kind of work. That's the type of job that they would choose to do, okay? So that's what's going on in this question. So the problem is, if you answer the question in such a way where you give the impression that, like, look, I'm only in this for the money. That's purely my interest. That's the only reason why I'm here. That's the only reason why I'm here talking to you, is because I hear this pays, right? If they get that impression from you, they're going to eliminate you right on the spot. So that's something to be aware of if you're not aware of that already. Okay, here we go. Kasim Khan says hi. Hi, Kasim. Thank you for being here. Eugene says, relocation is holding my interview next step after interview 5 people, including the vice president. Okay, already, Eugene, I'm sorry, man, you gotta work on your grammar. I don't understand what you mean by that. The next step will be an on-site visit, is that what you're saying? So relocation is holding my interview next step after interview 5 people, including the vice president. Okay. Is there a question in there? What are you wondering about that process? Are they wanting you to relocate? Are you open to relocation? Is the next interview in the new location? If you could maybe be more specific, I might be able to help you out a little bit better. Jordan Ward is here. Hi, Bill. I'm trying to relocate to the same position I'm in, but in another state. Okay, so this is the U.S. I have a meeting with the manager over there this week. What should my talk track look like? Talk track, you mean like what your conversation should be? Or okay, I'm trying to relocate to the same position in another state. I have a meeting with the manager over there. What do you mean by talk track? It continues. The market I'm in now is technically tremendously better, which is what makes it hard to find a talk track. I don't know what you mean by talk track, Jordan. If you could maybe just explain that term, that would be helpful. Bitflaker says, if you applied for a job via email and didn't get a response, would it be a good idea to reach out to them again after some time and ask them what is going on, if you got eliminated and why? Email is probably the worst way of communicating with people. The problem is that if you have any amount of social anxiety, email is your probably preferred method because it's so easy, right? You don't have to talk to anyone in real time. You don't have to interact with anyone. You say your piece and then you send it on its way. The problem is that email is the easiest thing to ignore. Okay? And the other aspect of it is that a lot of times, if you ignore the email, the problem solves itself. You don't have to do any work, and that's even better, right? So following up via email and things like this, communicating via email is not very good. So if it's important, if you're like trying to get a job or something and you need a response, this would be the last thing I would do, okay? The best thing to do is pick up the phone and call them, okay? It's very simple. All you do is you say, hi, it's me. I interviewed for this position last week. I'm just calling to follow up to see if there was any movement or any news on or any updates with regard to that position. You know, in addition, you can maybe say also, and if you needed any further information, I just wanted you to know that I'm happy to provide it. Something like that. Thank you very much. Have a great day. That's all you're saying. You could leave that as a message, or you could say that when they pick up the phone. Okay. It's the chances of getting a response to that are about at least 10 times greater than sending an email that says the same thing. Oh, sure, it takes a tiny little bit more effort, but you will get a lot better results doing it. You will get a much more immediate result. Okay. The other aspect of this is that everybody is sending an email. Not many people are sending a phone call. Like they're not sending a voicemail or they're not calling them. So if you are one of the few that is calling them or leaving a voicemail, that serves to elevate you above the crowd of all the people who didn't do that. Okay. Also, the other element of here is that if you have a pleasant voice, if you're someone they would want to interact with. Okay. And you can very easily work on that if that's not the case. You say, hey, how's it going? You know, my name is this. I'm just following up. It sounds like, you'd be the type of person they would want to interact with. That also is selling you as a candidate that they should take seriously. They're always looking for people that they like and that are easy and fun to interact with. Okay. So this is an opportunity for you to win in that department too. Okay, so So, yeah, I mean, you can follow up if you want. You know, if they didn't respond to you yet, the odds are they're not going to respond to you again. But, you know, there's nothing to lose by doing it. The problem is that if you behave like this for every job you apply to, you are wasting a lot of time and effort. And psychologically, this is not doing your mental health any good, like waiting for a response and stressing out over not getting something. Instead, you've got to move forward, okay? Keep focusing on applying to more jobs. What's the next opportunity? That is more effective to get a job, and also it's better for your mental health if you're focusing on that stuff, because it's very optimistic, rather than this activity, which is pessimistic. Heidi Flynn, can you do a video on second interviews and phone interviews, please? I've done both of those, so just do a search on my channel, and you will find both of those. I've got a video that talks about second interviews. I got another video that talks about phone interviews. So they're right there. Jordan Ward. Now, Jordan Ward. Okay, so this is a follow-up here. This is talk track. Talk track, my talk track as in what would sound good to say to the manager for the other state. The state I'm in now is busier and performs better, so I'm worried that he might find my desire odd. Thanks again, Bill, for the consistently great insight and advice. Well, thank you, Jordan Ward. Listen, look, in my opinion, okay, like, I don't know what state you're in. I don't know what state you're going to. I'm not in the United States, so I don't know about maybe regional attitudes and things like this. If you're going from a state that is got much more of that industry in, more people in it, more jobs in it, more of this business is in that state. If you're moving away from it to go to a lesser state, shall we say, when it comes to that industry, I don't think you really especially need a ready-made explanation from that. You're following the work. The reason you want to work there is because they're looking for someone that has the skills that you have and the experience that you have. That's why you're there. You know what I mean? And like, if you want to talk about simply the question of like, should I go where the industry is concentrated or should I go where it's more dispersed? There's pros and cons. If you go to a place where it's concentrated, yeah, there's more opportunities, there's more going on, there's more innovation, there's more opportunities, blah, blah, blah. But there's much stiffer competition, okay? If you go to a place where the industry is more dispersed, there's less activity, less population, okay, there's maybe less of everything, but for the people who are there, okay, maybe it's much more stable. Maybe it's much more, conservative. They're not jumping on the latest flavor of the month thing all the time to try and outmaneuver their stiff competition. They're doing a more steady, controlled, organized, operation where, you can build on foundations that you've put in. It's much more predictable. This kind of thing. So, I mean, you can find pros and cons of any situation. So if you do want to speak to it, you can maybe think about that type of, like those sort of talking points. But once again, you see, this is all just a guess on my part. And you don't want to start saying all these things if it turns out that maybe they aren't true. So unless you know it for a fact, you might not want to, start with like saying, how is it working over here in this state where everything's slower? I mean, maybe that's the wrong assumption. So I don't think you really need to prepare, especially for that. They're going to ask you in some way, shape, or form. They're going to ask you, why do you want this job? Like, why are you here looking for this job specifically, as opposed to all the others, especially the others in your native state where there's a lot more opportunities? Why aren't you there? And instead you're coming here. And you could say, look, I'm here because you have said that you were looking for someone that has this. I have all of those. And I think that this could be a really interesting adventure. I've seen a lot of solutions to problems over there, and it's time to maybe cross-pollinate. Maybe if I come here You guys can teach me some stuff, but I can also bring solutions to problems that you guys are maybe still struggling with over here. It's like, that's how things go. If you move things around a bit, this is what happens. So I think that's terribly exciting. And that's one of the other reasons why I'm here. I don't know, you could come up with a bunch of stuff like that, and maybe that would serve your purpose. Hopefully that helps. Okay, I can tell, it certainly seems like there's a lot more activity in the chat today. Maybe those filters that I took off, maybe this is what's causing it. Candace says, hello, my name is Candace. It is okay, is it okay to quit a job after 3 months because the job paid me no money? Before I was hired, they said they promised us 30 at orientation. They would give us in the fall, winter. After that, they said it would be less. So I quit after 3 months. Is it okay to put it on the Rhine? What do you mean by that? Or a resume, or leave it off? That's entirely up to you. If there's some advantage in putting this on your resume, do it. If you don't want to put it on your resume, you don't have to, okay? Now, 3 months is kind of a gray area, okay? In terms of like, does it make sense to put it on your resume or to take it off? If it was less than 3 months, I'd probably say leave it off, because essentially it was a failed experiment. They claimed they were looking for someone like you. They said they would do this. So you took the offer, you worked for them. It didn't work out. It was a failed experiment. So, unless you particularly want to talk about that in your future job interviews, I would say leave it off. Now, it's brief enough that it won't cause any issues with like a work gap. They might wonder, like, what have you been doing the last 3 months, right? If it was like, say, a year, you were there for a year and then you quit, obviously, I would recommend maybe put that on your resume. Unless there's a really good reason here, put it on your resume. But 3 months, it's kind of a gray area. So the big question is, if you were working right up until you took this job, this 3-month job, okay, you could maybe convince people there's no work gap. I just worked there and then I've been looking for a job, and 3 months is not an unreasonable amount of time to be out of work. So I think that you'd be okay leaving it off. But if anyone calls you on that, you might want to reconsider putting it back on. So maybe try it. Try leaving it off. If you want to leave it off, try leaving it off. And if you do go to another interview, if somebody asks you, like, why have you been out of work for 3 months? What have you been doing? Like that kind of stuff. Then you might want to consider putting it back on. But, that's kind of the approach I would take. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, you're perfectly justified in doing that if they're not honoring their commitments. And I mean, I'm sure in your case, there might be more you can do to try and force their hand to pay you. I mean, if you worked for 3 months and they didn't pay you, that really sucks. And it's illegal, right? Depending on what country you're in, I mean, it's still illegal, right? So I'm sorry you had that experience, Candace. That sucks. I don't think anyone deserves that. My Dream says, hey, good morning to you and your viewers. Yeah, good morning, My Dream. Celesta Ranch says, hi, Bill. Always look forward to your live streams. I want to switch back to an industry from 5 years. Do I remove my most recent irrelevant industries from my resume and have a job gap, or keep them? Okay, here's the deal, Celesta Ranch. Okay, a lot of people think of their resume as like a track record of things they've done that's like a trophy. It's like this is my history, right? And for the sake of completeness, you want to put all the major things you've done on your resume, right? Okay, because it would then be an accurate history of your career, right? The problem is that that's not really what a resume is. A resume is a document that's designed for one specific purpose, and it's not to be a record of your career. It's designed to be something that convinces someone to give you a job. Okay, so it's the selling point. It's like almost like a brochure or pamphlet that you would give to a potential customer or client that's intended to convince them to buy, right? To buy the product, which is you, right? So to that end, like that is what you're using the resume for. So to that end, you don't want to put stuff on there for the sake of completeness that kill your chances of them wanting to hire you or even interview you, right? So think of it in those terms. Think of it like this is a document. Its purpose is to get me hired at this company. So leave off stuff that you think are going to be detrimental, that's going to work against you. Okay, if you've got a bunch of experience that's totally irrelevant to what they're looking for, and you fear that it may dilute the stuff that you have, then leave it off. You know what I mean? You don't have to include it for the sake of completeness. Okay. Now, if you're faced with a dilemma, you feel that the experience is irrelevant and might work against you, but you don't want to trigger questions about a work gap, because if you leave stuff off your resume, there's going to be gaps, right? So maybe there's a halfway house where you can say, I did this job here, but you don't really give any, like beyond a very brief explanation. You don't give any details because it's irrelevant. That's also a possibility too. There's no one size fits all answer. There really isn't, because depending on who the resume is going to, different people care about different things. A recruiter will care more about like experience that isn't relevant. They'll be affected the most. But hiring managers, all things being equal, generally they will care less about that. If you say like, look, I had a career here for 5 years, but I'm essentially wanting to change careers and go back to this, they will be more understanding of that. Recruiters will be less understanding, generally speaking. Okay? So it's hard to know what to do. You just got to basically take a stab at it and try one thing. And if it gets you nowhere, like in like a month or whatever, or a while, then try a different approach. Okay? And that way you can sort of A/B test it and see which one works best in your situation. Okay, I'm really falling behind with the question. This is the problem with taking the filters off. I got so many questions here. But thank you for being here and participating in this. Hopefully it's making sense. Oh God, this moved on me. Where did I leave off? Okay, Celeste Ranch. Okay, job gap. So Candace says, I quit because I wasn't making money, but it will look like I haven't worked in a year. Or is it okay to say at the interview if they ask? Listen, that's an entirely different question. What to do about a work gap? Okay, so now this becomes less about the whole 3-month job thing. This becomes a question of what do I do about a work gap? What you don't want to say is that you've been basically doing nothing for a year except looking for a job. What you want to say is that you've done something during that time that's productive. Okay, so have you done any volunteer work? Have you done any schooling or training of any kind? Those would be great things to say. It's like, no, I'm not out of work. I just went back to school. I just went and got some training, right? Now, let's say you can't say any of those things, okay? You didn't really do any training and, you've just been looking for a job and it's been slow, If you're talking to a recruiter, this is what I would do. Right now, if I were you, I would go and just take some free online course. Okay, just whatever. Something that's relevant to your career or improving yourself. And that way you can truthfully say, when they say, what have you been doing this last year? You could say, well, I went back to school. I've always wanted to brush up on my skills in this area. And so that's what I did. I figured that I would do that before I rejoined the workforce. Okay. So no part of that is a lie because you went and you did get some training. Okay. Maybe if they're quick courses, take a couple of them so you can like rattle off some things that you've done. Because an obvious question would be, oh, what training did you get? And you said, well, I took the courses in this, I took courses in this, I took courses in that, and they're like, oh, okay. So, that's a much better answer than saying, well, sorry, I've just been looking for a job. I've been between jobs for a year, not doing anything. Okay? Because the thing is, if you say that, like, this is so stupid, this is how recruiters think, this is how they're trained to think. If they find that you've been looking for a long time and no one will hire you, they come to the conclusion that, oh, maybe something's wrong with you, and nobody wants to hire you for a reason. And we don't know what the reason is, but it looks fishy, so maybe we should just pass on you also in case there's something going on there, right? This is the stupid way they think. They play statistical odds. So a lot of times that is the case, but a lot of times it isn't, So the stupid thing is they're going to come to this conclusion, whether it's true or not, if you communicate to them that you've had a long work gap and you haven't done anything else during the work gap. So you need to provide an explanation. Now, if there's other things that you can say, like say you stayed home to take care of kids, there's like 5 kids and someone's got to take care of them, so it fell to you. Like if there's something like that, that's understandable, sure. If there's a health thing, you're in the hospital, whatever, I mean, we all know that that's justified, but the problem using that as an explanation is that raises another problem, which is that if we hire you, we don't want you to be like sick all the time. We don't want you to be off on disability the whole time. So that once again brands you as a high-risk employee. So I would think twice before saying that, if that were true. Like if it's the truth, maybe you need to say it, but you just don't want to plant the seed that like, oh no, if you hire me, I'm going to immediately go off on sick leave or disability, because that can raise some red flags with them too. So hopefully that makes sense. I've done videos on that. If you want to go deeper, check out my channel. Happy and Lucky says, what is your approach to cover job gaps that cover a good length of time, and is a cover letter good? Okay, well, I basically just answered that, so hopefully you're around for that. That's the approach. And is a cover letter good to add each time I apply? Doesn't matter. Some people are into cover letters, some people aren't. Depends what they ask for. I'm a big fan of, like, the cover letter is just basically very short. If you're applying over email, for example, where you attach your resume or your application form or whatever, the cover letter is basically the body of the email. That's where you say, hello, my name is this, I'm applying for this job. Please find attached my resume, my application form, and here's my contact information if you should need anything else. Right? Like that's the minimal form of the cover letter. You could also put other things in there, like saying, I'm going to highlight, the things I have. So you could say, I'm applying for this job because I understand you're looking for someone with this. I have all these things, so that's why I'm applying. And then you say the other things that I just went over. So to me, that's good enough. Like I'm not a fan of people that say, write me like a cover letter that's 1,000 words, explaining your whole life philosophy and, everything you bring to the table in every conceivable situation. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a big fan of that personally, but it doesn't matter what my thoughts are. It matters what the person posting the job cares about. So if they've said include a cover letter, include it. If they haven't, then what I just described is probably sufficient. Candace, the company emailed me an exit interview, and I gave them a bad score because of how the company is run. I just answered truthfully and honestly, so please give me your honest answer. Okay, well, it's already done, Candace, so my honest answer is don't do an exit interview, especially if you have a bone to pick with them. It doesn't make anything better for you. It just lets them know that you're mad. And, you don't want to work with them. You know what I mean? Right? So, like, does sending them that benefit you? No, it kind of doesn't. I mean, it's not the end of the world, hopefully, but it doesn't do you any favors to do that. It's for them, right? Like they want you to complete these things because it's for their benefit, not yours, right? So, I mean, but it's done now, so there's no use worrying about it. You know, if you're saying like, well, you guys never paid me, and obviously that's why I'm leaving. You know, you guys suck. You know, that's not going to make them more amenable to you, right? Jordan Ward says, definitely see a lot more engagement in the chat with those filters off. Huh? Thanks. Yes, I'm noticing that too. The problem now is that I might not be able to keep up. I'm going to try my best here. On the Volley says, had a positive interview and had a reference check. It's been a week, but still haven't heard anything yet. Okay. Monaco. Hello, Bill. Bill with the lowercase b. I need to apply internationally because there is no job market in science in my country. How do I handle a job gap under that condition? Also, how do I apply meanwhile to no science here? Okay. First of all, you have to, it sounds like, okay, one possibility for you is you got to do what most people have to do, which is you can't get the exact job that you were going for. You know, so what do? People go where they're needed, right? Now, if you're completely unskilled, that would be one thing. But the work you've done, I assume you have some kind of academic background. You've got probably some degrees, probably in science is what I'm assuming. You know, there's a lot of things in there that you can apply to many, many jobs. Okay. So you just need to apply for those. Now, the other thing is that if you're in a situation where you have a lot you could bring to a job, but you don't have the stereotypical resume that they would hire, you don't have the exact things that they're looking for, but you know you can do it. You might be even overqualified for it in some cases. If that's you, you have to explore the world of networking as a means to get a job, okay? Because simply responding to job ads and going through recruiters, that will likely not work optimally for you, okay? It's the same with anyone who's changing a career. They're changing their career. They're in a situation where they have a resume filled with experience in a completely other field that's irrelevant to the job they're going for. So they have the same problem, okay? How do they break that mold? How they fix that catch-22? They don't have experience in this industry, and no one will hire them because they don't have experience. They break it by going around the recruiters. They go to hiring managers, and where you can say to the hiring manager, like, look, I've had a long career in this. You know, I've got a lot of skills and I've got a lot of passion for doing this type of work. You know, I realize I don't have a lot of experience in this field, but I have a lot that I can bring to it. I'm passionate about it. I know I could be good in the role. Just give me a chance. And a lot of hiring managers will respond favorably to that, right? So that's how you get around this situation, okay? You know, they might not be hiring people in research labs, you know, in science, but, you know, maybe in private industry, maybe outside of the R&D department, they need technicians, they need analysts, they need, you know, all kinds of people, you know, and like in engineering, you know, things where you can use your skills, right? And those jobs can pay a lot, right? So that's how this works. You don't have to, I mean, that's also an option for you is what I'm saying, okay? So I would learn about networking as a way to get a job. I talk about that. Other people talk about that. I've got a whole entire course on it here, okay? But learn that and start looking further afield instead of just the very specific thing that you train for, okay? Another option is that you just have to go around the world. If the more specialized you are in your field, like if you're a university professor or something, it's quite common. You got to go halfway around the world to get a job in that field. That's just how that stuff works. You know, the more specialized you are, the further you're going to have to travel to get a job that fits you. Happy and lucky. Good morning. I started my own company. Do I include that if it's different than the real job that I'm pursuing? Example, I do what? I do art, but looking in HR to explain the work gap. Here's the problem. When you say that I've done my own company, if you're interviewing with a recruiter for a posted job, that counts against you. Because the problem is then they think like, oh, you've got your own thing going. So if we hire you, you've got your own thing going on the side. You say you're not doing it anymore, but we don't really know if that's true. Maybe you're a young hopeful that is still trying to make it in their personal business. And we know that if you have to choose between working at your day job or working on your own thing, your priority is going to be your own thing. Okay? So there's going to be a conflict of interest there. So I'm sorry, that makes you a high risk candidate. So we're out. Okay? So that's the problem. That's one thing going on here. Another thing is like you're talking about a work gap. You know, there's a work gap. I did my own company. But if you did your own company and it failed, I don't think a lot of recruiters really understand that. Like, I mean, look, there are some great recruiters out there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad ones that don't know anything about anything, and they certainly don't know anything about starting their own company. So, you know what I mean? So you and I both know it's a great thing to have even attempted your own company. Even if you failed, it didn't work out. I would rather hire someone like that more than someone who's never, ever attempted to do anything on their own, right? You know, personally. The problem is recruiters don't see it that way. So that's all they're going to see. So I would, if you have to mention it to explain away a work gap, I don't know, I would try and spin it in a way that it's more like training, it's more like research. You know, I wanted to understand how the market worked for this industry and, you know, train myself in how to promote something or how to persuade or communicate with the market. You know, so I was doing some research into that and improving my marketing skills and sales skills. You know, I don't know. I would try and spin it in that type of way. So you can say, I'm working on myself. I improved myself. And now that I've learned what I set out to learn, I'm ready to rejoin the workforce armed with these extra skills. I would try and spin it that way. That if you're talking to a recruiter, that type of thing is generally safe. It's stuff they don't see as a red flag. Celeste Ranch, thank you so much. I plan on registering for your Get Hired course. Well, thank you very much. If it works for you, great. A lot of people have taken it. It's where basically I've put all my advice, like from beginning to end in a logical order with templates, with explanations. There's a lot of concepts. There's a lot of just separate concepts that are at play. And I try and lay them all out one by one, like, you know, so then you understand the situation, what's going on. So that's what the course is. It's basically everything I recommend, all in one place, all in a logical order, you know, step by step, templates. Start by doing this, do this first, solve this problem first, address this first, then update this, then create this, then do this with it. You know, that's what the Get Hired course is. So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, I have that. And also I have a video that explains the course. So like before you buy the course, you should have a very good idea of what's in it and how it works and all that. So all of that is in the description box of this live stream. So if you're into that kind of thing, check it out. And thank you. Candace says, the job that paid me no money that I was talking about, that I left after 3 months, I will leave it off of my resume. But if they ask at the interview, what have you been doing? Is it okay to tell? That depends. I would practice in advance. I would vet your story, Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to just be put on the spot and then you talk off the top of your head completely and risk saying something that they could see as a red flag. Okay? But whatever story, the other kind of thing there is, if you've given them an explanation of a work app, you said, like, I went back to school, I got trained, right? Then they press you further and they say, like, well, what else did you do? The reason why you want to vet your story and you want to have it prepared is because you don't want to start talking and then contradict what you had just said about, like, I was training, and then now you're changing your story. Now you're saying, well, no, I wasn't training. I actually had a job in there, right? So, like, this is why you got to think through this stuff and just practice a few times, have it be automatic. And so whatever comes up, you're prepared for it. Okay, that's what I would say. It goes on. Is it okay to tell them all at the interview if they ask about it that I left after 3 months? Yeah, okay. Happy and Lucky says, thank you for explaining the difference of how recruiters and hiring managers think. Do you have a video on this topic? Any good books to read further about this? I'm not sure if there's any books. I'm sure somebody's maybe written this down at some point, but yeah, I know I've done videos on this. I couldn't tell you what they're called. I think I've done a video that addresses that directly. It says the difference between recruiters and hiring managers. The bottom line is that hiring managers are the managers of some department or some operation within a business. So they're the boss, right? So if you get the job, they're your boss, right? That's who they are. And they are the ones that realize, okay, I need to hire someone. They're the ones that come to that conclusion and initiate the hiring process because it's up to them. How many people you have in your little group is up to you. You're the boss of the group. You're given, one way or another, you're given a budget. It could be in a very formal way. It could be a very informal way, but you decide what your costs are, right? Like, what you choose to do. And some people may decide to have more people. Some other people decide to have less people. So, you make the decision. You come to the conclusion, okay, we just have too much work for the current employees. We need to hire another person. Okay, so that's the hiring manager. Now, sometimes there's not even a recruiter that enters into it. They just decide to write up the job description and they contact, a job board like Indeed. And they say, here, I'm going to send you a listing, almost like a classified in the newspaper, that how that used to be, like, in a past life that not many people are familiar with. And they pay Indeed a little bit of money, and Indeed runs their job ad, right? And then all the applicants come directly to the hiring manager's email address. They read them and they decide if they want to bring any in for an interview. And then they do the interview. And then, if they want to hire someone, they can either hire them directly if they know the basics of HR, or that's when they get an HR person involved and say, you do all the legal stuff you need to do to get them employed here. Okay. Right. So there's various government forms and things like, you fill all those out. I don't know what they are, but you fill them out, or the hiring manager can do it themselves. Right. Now, let's say the hiring manager is busy. They can't afford to take time out of their job to write job descriptions and, like read resumes and all this kind of stuff, be in multiple rounds of job interviews. They don't have time for that. So what they do is they hire someone to do it for them. And that's where the recruiter comes in. Sometimes the recruiter is an internal employee of the company. Sometimes they're an external company that the hiring manager just pays to provide this service. So if the recruiter's involved, their job is to create the job posting. Now, they don't know what it should say, so they get all the information they get from the hiring manager. They ask the hiring manager, who are you looking for? What should they have? And the hiring manager says, I don't know. I guess a degree in this would be good. Some experience in, say, 2 years experience doing that would be good. I don't know, right? The recruiter writes all this down. Then they ask the hiring manager, what is this job? Like, what's it called? What are the duties? So I got something to tell people, right? And their hiring manager just rattles off a bunch of things off the top of their head. And the recruiter writes it all down. So the recruiter then formats all that, supposedly spell checks it, which usually they don't because they don't know how to spell. And then they pay a bunch of places to post it. And they also promote it sometimes. And they are the ones that get the responses. They filter the responses, do a first round filter of all the resumes. And then the finalists, they present to the hiring manager and they say, well, we recommend that you bring in these people. And the hiring manager usually says, sure, whatever, just make it happen. And the recruiter organizes all the interviews, sets them all up. So you see, they're just like a coordinator. They're like an office assistant. They really don't know anything about the job. They don't really know what skills are needed or what traits are needed. They don't know any of that. They're just going off the things that the hiring manager has told them, that the hiring manager says, like, I'm basically paying you to go out and find candidates that have this stuff, right? That's your job, right? So that's the difference between hiring managers and recruiters. You talk to a hiring manager, they know about the job. They know the details. They're technical experts in doing the job usually. Recruiters, usually they don't know the first thing about the job itself, other than what they're told, right? So you're dealing with two different types of people. So consequently, they care about different things. The recruiter will care much more about, do you have exactly what it says we're looking for? Whereas a hiring manager, you could say, like, look, I don't have a degree in that, but I do have 10 years experience in this role doing this. And they'll go, okay, yeah, no problem. That's fine. I can see that you're qualified, right? So that's basically the difference. Obviously, it varies. I mean, this is just a stereotypical kind of thing, but that's generally the idea of the difference between those two roles. Where are we here? Monaco says, thanks for the answer, Bill. What if in the international interview I got asked about the gap? Is it okay to tell the market here is just terrible? Well, you could maybe say that if you could say it in a diplomatic way. I certainly wouldn't use those, put it in those terms, right? You could say, well, it's, pretty challenging right now. I know they're looking more for people in this area, but on second thoughts, I would steer away from the whole thing because you're saying something negative about yourself. If you're saying, oh, I couldn't get a job there. They're not looking, they're looking for people far more talented than I am, and they have different skills than what I do, right? So that's why I'm here. You don't want to essentially say that, right? So I would just not go into it, unless you had to. And if they bring it up and they say, why are you looking here? You focus on the positives of them rather than the deficiencies of your home state or something, or your home industry. It's like, well, I hadn't initially considered moving, but then I saw your offer. Then I saw what you were looking for. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. You're looking for everything that I have. And, this good thing and this good thing and this good thing. So I figured, what the hell, let's see what this is about. This might be fun and it might make sense. I would do more of that approach rather than focusing on the negatives of something. It's a general rule in these types of interactions. You don't bring up negatives about anything. You don't say anything bad about your previous employers. You don't say anything bad about you. You don't say anything bad about anyone else, any third party, right? They all have red flags attached to them. Okay, so focus on positives. Okay, Julia. How are recruiters being hired if they are so unprofessional? No one cares to check if recruiter knows how to hire people instead of missing the right person. Well, you could say that about almost any job. I'm sure you meet a ton of unprofessional people in various roles, and you got to kind of wonder, like, why did they hire that person? Because they're no good at what they're doing. They're mean, they're nasty, they're incompetent, they seem to not have any interest in what they're doing. How do they have a job? I'm sure that question is formed in your mind at some point, right? Same with recruiters, right? The other thing is that a recruiter is also an entry-level job. It can be an entry-level job. Not all recruiters are entry-level people, but some recruiters are entry-level, right? So you come out of school with like a 6-month certificate in HR or something, and you get hired as your first job ever as a recruiter. And then you're learning on the job, and you're learning how to hopefully be competent, but you don't start out that way. Everybody starts somewhere. I'm not necessarily beating up on recruiters. I'm just saying that's, it could be an entry-level person. Well, the other thing is that it's a well-known fact, and I've said this before too, it's a well-known fact that hiring the way we hire, the way 99% of companies hire, by posting jobs, having them talk to a recruiter, going off what's in their resume, and then passing a job interview where they ask you these cliched, cookie-cutter, totally predictable questions. It's well known that that's a very inaccurate and ineffective way of hiring. There's been studies done on this stuff. I'm not an expert, and there's people in academia that are professors of business, essentially, that have done all kinds of studies out in the real world that have shown this. We all know this. The big question is, why do they still do it? Well, because the alternatives that are more effective are much more labor intensive. You got to spend more time with people, right? And at the end of the day, they would rather do this than do that, right? Now, you can see this because when it comes to higher level jobs, like executive jobs, the way they hire for those roles is completely different, okay? You can bet that when they want to hire a divisional vice president, they don't put them in an interview and have a 21-year-old that doesn't know anything about anything ask them, tell me about yourself, right? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? They don't. That's not how they hire for those. You put a lot of time into the candidates. It's usually the hiring managers, okay? And you can imagine, like at that level, the hiring managers are C-level people, and board members, and all this. They spend a lot of time with the candidates, getting to know them, right? That can be very labor intensive, when you're talking about multiple candidates for like a role. But that's the only way you can really form a more accurate appraisal of them. You want to know their quirks. You want to know their opinions. You want to know their hang-ups. You want to know the type of person that they are, their philosophy of how they see the world, what would work and what wouldn't. You want to understand that from each of these people. That's going to inform you how they're going to behave in the role, right? So for the lower level stuff, a lot of companies, they accept the fact that this process is wildly inaccurate, but they have this fundamental belief that, a warm body is a warm body. A person is as good as a person is as good as a person. It doesn't matter really which one we get, as long as we avoid making obvious mistakes like hiring the person who's a psychopath or hiring the person that, is absolutely insufferable, that can't hold down a job because they don't understand that they have to follow rules or something. You know what I mean? Like if they can avoid that, that's what they're shooting for, right? Beyond that, it's essentially a crapshoot. And I know I've got a very cynical view of this, but that's actually accurate in my experience. I mean, I've been at the low level, and I've been at the high level, and this is what I've seen, and I've lived it too. You just don't know. It's impossible to really know who somebody is when you spend an hour with them. Everything they could have said is a lie. You do some basic background checks, but beyond that, you have no idea who this person is. So in order to really find out, you got to hire them and see. It's almost like you'd like to do a 6-month probation, right? And see if, they turn out as a really good employee or they don't. You'd like to take a chance on people, and then just try them out. And in a lot of smaller organizations that are less formal, they can do that stuff, Anyway, the hiring managers make the final decision. They go They will receive recommendations from recruiters, but in the end, the hiring manager makes the final decision. That's the person you really have to impress, okay, and have a rapport with. Okay, anyway, that was a rambling trip to nowhere. Where was I here? I'm going bug-eyed trying to look at this feed here. Here, alternate camera angle to keep you guys, keep the action happening here. Okay, explode area. There's a name. That shows a bit of personality. Hello, sir. I have just graduated from university and currently seeking my first job. Can you give any general tips on getting your first job? Where to start? Listen, being qualified for a job is a completely different thing to being able to get a job. Okay? To get a job, you have to convince people, usually people that don't know anything about what you do, that you're the person they should pick, right? You're going to be going in there with like maybe 10 other people that like maybe 10 people get an interview. You're going to be one of the 10 if you get an interview. You have to convince them that you're better or more suitable than the other 9, okay? The first thing is lose any kind of attitude you might have, lose any kind of sense of entitlement. Go in there and just be the person that you think they would want to work with. Be pleasant and friendly, be approachable. Don't get offended over like every little thing. Just, be easygoing and accommodating, and also be prepared. Okay. Do your preparation. Learn all you can about doing a resume. Learn all you can about doing job interviews. Practice. Practice makes perfect. When we start out anything in life, usually we suck in the beginning. We're terrible. We disappoint ourselves how bad we are. But if you stick with it and you practice, you will improve. You will improve over time. And interviewing for a job is the same thing. If you practice with friends and family if you can. It might be embarrassing, it might be awkward, but do it. Learn some of the answers, practice the answers by yourself, and then practice with somebody else. Get them to pretend to be an interviewer, and they're going to give you a job interview, and practice with them. And if you keep doing that, you will improve tremendously in a very short amount of time. Okay? People tend to hire the candidate they like the most. That's very counterintuitive. You would think that they would hire the person that on paper would be the most qualified or technically qualified. Something that a lot of younger people struggle with, because this is very unintuitive, is that's the person that a lot of times doesn't get hired, because the reality is that you could be gifted, you could be accomplished on paper, but let's say, you're very argumentative, or you're very pessimistic, or you're very off-putting, or, nobody wants to deal with you because you're very gruff and you bark at people and you get upset really easily and you find fault with everything. Like, the problem is nobody wants to work with someone like that. So even if that person was like a genius, they would still choose not to hire them, and instead somebody that's not as capable technically, but someone that you deal with them and it doesn't ruin your day. Right? So that's kind of what they're looking for in a job interview. And if you can find someone who has both, they got qualifications, they know their stuff, plus they're easy to deal with, and they're the type of person you would want to work with, that's like a hole in one. That's what they're looking for. So that's probably the basics. Hopefully that makes sense. Learn all you can, practice hard, and you will succeed. I almost said Jim Kellen. That's his Kim Jellen says, my aunt loves your channel. Well, your aunt is obviously a very fine woman. She is 50-something. She has a job in communications, but wants to grow and cannot at current company. Does your course help her? Some other channels seem on Y for Gen, YZ. so she has a job in communications. She wants to grow and cannot. Well, it depends in what way do you want to grow? Like what are you looking to learn? At present, I have 2 courses, one that teaches you business and one that teaches you basically how to get a job. So if she is interested in either of those things, they would probably help. If you're talking about the MBA course, that is not solely on communications. Like it's on everything, right? Like all areas of business. So communications is, I mean, you use it in everything, right? But areas that focus more on it are things like marketing and sometimes things like HR. Like marketing is you're communicating with potential customers. HR, you're communicating with employees, right? Especially areas of marketing like public relations, they really focus on communications. But learning management, for example, you talk about communication, you talk about leadership, things like this. So it really depends what element she's looking to improve. Neither of those solely focus on that. So, but check them out. This is why I made videos that describe each of the courses in detail, so you know what you're getting into. So there's links to those in the description box under this live stream. So check those out. And if that serves your purpose, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. It depends what you're looking for or what she's looking for. But I appreciate the compliment, Kim. That's very, very kind of you and your aunt. Study Panda. Is this like a kung fu fighting study panda of some kind? How do you recognize who is the hiring manager versus recruiter on LinkedIn? They usually don't have a job title, hiring manager. Okay, if the person is some kind of manager, then they're the hiring manager. Okay, so for example, let's say they posted a job for plumber, and the person that you're talking to is the head plumber. They're the hiring manager. Okay. You can also tell because if the job reports to the head plumber would be the hiring manager in 99% of cases. Okay. If you're dealing with somebody who is not a plumber, but they are, they have a background in human resources, okay, or they're acting as the recruiter they're the one that's filtering the resumes, that wrote the job description, that's administrating the whole thing, that's a recruiter, okay? If they're not a plumber, in this case, they'd be a recruiter. Does that make sense? That's how this stuff works. A recruiter is just a hired hand. What they know is how to post jobs, how to conduct interviews, the places to promote like a job posting. So they will know how to post it on social media, where like they'll be members of all the groups online and, this kind of stuff. Those are recruiters. Also, what first message would you send them? Thank you in advance. Okay, so you want how do you recognize who's the hiring manager? They usually don't have a job. Okay, who are you talking about? The recruiter? What's the first thing you would say? Well, look, the way it works with recruiters is if they're posting a job, they will tell you, this is how we want you to apply. Either fill in this form online or send your application to this email address, or like they'll tell you, okay, so like what they want, right? Now, a hiring manager, okay, it varies. Like if they've posted a job, they'll probably tell you how they would like you to respond to it, okay? And in that case, they may have a recruiter working for them, in which case they don't want you to respond to them. They want you to talk to the recruiter. That is the official process they've set up, and that's what they've told you to do, okay? Now, if you're wanting to just contact a hiring manager that hasn't posted the job, you don't know if they're looking for someone or not, right? Okay, I talk about that extensively. That's a way to tap a lot of hidden jobs. They are actually looking for someone. They're thinking of getting somebody. They just haven't posted it. Or they may never post it. They may just ask their employees and say, do you have like a friend or family members or someone that you would recommend to me? We need to hire one more plumber. Do you have any recommendations? And they'll say, yeah, actually my brother-in-law is a really good plumber. And I mean, I've known him for 10 years. He does good work, and I would personally recommend him. So if you give me the word, I'll ask him to come in and interview if that's what you want, right? So they may never post that job. The boss maybe just has a meeting with this plumber's brother-in-law, and maybe it works out, right? In which case, if the head plumber, the boss, is thinking of hiring someone, and you swoop in there and say, hey, I'm a plumber, and I'm great at doing this type of work, and I know about your company. I know you guys do good work in this area. Listen, if ever you're looking for another plumber, let me know, because I would love to work for you. That's all. Have a nice day, right? Now, if you sent that kind of message right to the hiring manager and it arrived at that time, they would probably think, wait a minute, this is actually very fortuitous. I'll just bring you in. You seem like you're on the ball. You seem like you're genuinely passionate about working here, or why would you have sent me this, right? And there's not a lot of people doing this. It's not like 100 people sent messages to him that week, right? Him or her. So, you know what I mean? So like, that's how you would approach a hiring manager that has not just posted a job. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on the situation, but that's kind of the basics of it. Private Channel says, can you mention more about the hidden job market, not advertised, to get better positions, better paid? Okay, that's a big chunk of what this course talks about. I have done videos on this. One's called Hidden Job Market. So you can just go and type in the company's expert, Hidden Job Market, and that should come right up. Okay, people don't seem to like that term, hidden job market. A lot of people, when they hear it, they just think it's some kind of it's very real. I mean, go and do your own research. You'll see it's real. Every job I've gotten since the early 2000s, has been in the hidden job market, and what I'm like. Most jobs that are out there are not posted. Okay. Now, why is that? First of all, this might be surprising to some people. Don't take my word for any of this. Go and do your own research, and you'll see that this is true. Okay. Most jobs are not posted. Why are they not posted? Well, it's because you don't need to post them to find qualified people and people that want to do it, right? It might be a very good job, and there might be a lot of qualified people for it. So you don't have to go to great lengths to find someone, Like a moment ago, I was talking about a hypothetical example where a hiring manager just went to their own employee and said, do you know anyone? And the employee said, yes, I do. And furthermore, I recommend this person. Now, that is huge, right? If you have a personal recommendation, someone recommends you for a job, and the person recommending you is the right-hand person of the boss that's hiring, I mean, that carries a lot of weight. The boss has worked with this employee for many years. They trust the employee. They know the employee is honest. They do good work. They know their stuff. They don't lie, So when this employee comes to you and says, I stake my personal reputation on recommending this person because I know they're good, right? I have worked with them before in a previous job. They were the best worker there. They were a pleasure to deal with. All the customers liked them. They did good work. I don't recall them ever having a complaint against them. So yeah, I highly recommend this person. The boss is usually going to take you up on that and say okay, sure, I'll bring him in. If you think it's a good idea, that carries a lot of weight to me. So sure, right? So that's huge, right? So imagine if that happened, right? Would you then, if you were the boss, go to all this trouble of writing a big formal job description, which takes your time, thinking through all the detailed requirements of what hypothetically someone would need to do this job, right? Which takes time, drafting it, publicizing it, posting it to places like Indeed and on the company website and on job boards, which costs money, by the way. Most places don't do it for free. Like Indeed charges if you want to put a posting on their site, right? Because they know that, if you put a post on our site, a lot of people see them and a lot of people apply. You want a lot of candidates, you post it with us, right? So we charge you for that, right? This is time consuming, it's expensive. And who are the candidates that you're getting? You're getting people that are total strangers. You don't know them. You don't have any connection to these people whatsoever. They could be axe murderers. They could be people that are embezzlers, that are totally dishonest. They could even not even be real candidates. It could be like industrial. It could be industrial espionage. You've got moles and spies and all this sent by your competitors. In some industries, they got to deal with that stuff, right? You have no idea. You're going to the general public, so it's high risk people, right? As opposed to someone that your right-hand person has recommended and personally vouched for. So what would you do? If you could find someone through a personal recommendation just by asking your employee, you open the door to your office, you go out, you say, hey, come here for a second. You ask them a question, 5 minutes later, you got a recommendation, and they're going to tell them to contact you. What could be easier and better than that? Right? So that job exists. It's not posted publicly. So we call it on the hidden job market. It just means that it's there, but it's not posted publicly. Right? There's a variety of reasons why jobs could be there but not posted publicly. But this is a common scenario, right? You don't have to search far and wide to find people that would want to do this for the money, right? It's a good job, So that's why it's worth your while to go after those jobs. For every job that you see posted, like all those jobs that you see posted online, that's something like 20% of all the jobs that are out there. Okay, if you want to be really conservative about it, it's 30%. There's still more jobs that are hidden than that are posted. Okay, I did a public opinion poll on this channel a couple of weeks ago where I asked everybody, I said, the last job that you got, did you get it by responding to a job posting, or did you get it through some form of networking? Did you meet someone first, or do you know someone first, or before you responded blind to an ad? And over 50% of people, I can't remember what the number was, but a lot of them, it was well over 50%, they said networking. So if all this is surprising, or if you find it fishy, don't take my word for it. Go out and just verify this. Okay. I get people accusing me of it's all a conspiracy. It's all, it's like, okay, whatever, if that's what you think, but go out and verify it, because it's not. It's very real. And I myself, I've hired people in the hidden job market. I'd much rather hire people in the hidden job market. I don't want to hire a total stranger. If I can hire someone that has the personal recommendation of somebody I trust, I'll look at them first. Doesn't mean I'm going to hire them, but I'll look at them first. And if it checks out, sure. If it doesn't check out, which sometimes it doesn't, I won't, but I'll at least look first. Okay, so where did I leave off? I tend to go on these monologues and never come back. So let's see, where did I leave off? Study Panda. I remember Study Panda, the kung fu fighting study animal. Pearl. Hello, Bill. I reached out to a hiring manager on LinkedIn and sent him a mail on his official email. There was no response. A couple of days later, an opening I was qualified for was advertised. I applied and wasn't shortlisted. Is there any way to improve? I'm having a feeling networking is difficult. Well, look, networking is difficult if you go to one person and they don't happen to respond. Listen, what you're basically doing, what this type of networking is, okay, what you're trying to do, this is like the sales process, okay? Now, what you've done is you're wanting to sell something and you're going door to door and you've knocked on one door and the door didn't open. Nobody came. Nobody answered the door. And so now you're saying, well, it looks like this is hard. Now, the way this works is you don't just go to one person. You go to many people, right? Many. And what's going to happen is more than 50% of the time, you will probably just not get a response. Okay. Okay. Or you either get no response, which is the vast majority of what you get, or you get a no. Okay. You only get like a yes 20% of the time, 10% of the time, even if it was like 2% of the time, you would still get yeses. Okay. So if you want it, let's, for the sake of argument, let's say it's 2% of the time you get a yes. So that means you have to go to 200 people. If you go to 200 people, you get 4 yeses. And what the yes is usually, like I've explained on this channel and like I've explained in my course, one way to do it, which is kind of the way you're going down now, is you can request many things. But one thing that I would request that's very valuable, very useful to do, is some kind of informational interview. I'd like to get your opinion on something. I'd like to be able to ask you a few questions about this industry, blah, blah, blah. You could do it that way. Or you could just say directly, like, I'm looking for a job. I do this very well. And you don't just say, I'm looking for a job like it's their job to hire you. You say, look, I can do this. This is the problem I solve. I'm very good at this. If ever you're looking, like maybe you're not looking, but if ever you're looking, let me know, because I'd love to work here. I think you guys do a great job. And then you compliment them on whatever. I mean, there's got to be something nice you could say about them because you did pick them for some reason, right? So people tend to respond to stuff like that. There's a lot of principles here. But the point is, let's say you went to 200 people. I could, if I wanted to, I could send a template message to 200 people in, say, 2 hours. 2 hours of my time. There you go. This same message goes out. That template message goes out to 200 people, 200 executives in my case, and I recommend that to everyone else too. So if it's a response rate of 2%, you get 4 people saying, yeah, let's get together. You can, how is Friday at 2 p.m. for you? Something like that. I'll get 4 of those. Right? So you can't just go to one person, have it not work out and say, oh, this process doesn't work. You got to go to many, right? Most salespeople, if you ever worked in sales, you will know that more people say no than they say yes. But that's okay. Even if you have to talk to 100 people, if 20 of them say yes, you got 20 sales. You just made yourself $1,000 or whatever it is, right? So that's okay. I'll talk to 100 people to make $1,000. Tomorrow I'll talk to another 100 people, make another $1,000. It doesn't matter that 80% of them say no, 20% of them say yes. This is how it works. You're looking for one job, right? So don't be discouraged by this. And the other thing is that the more of this you do, the better you get. Okay, so usually when you start out on your first attempt at doing anything, it's not really refined. You improve over time, right? So you would tweak your message a bit, make it a bit friendlier, make it a bit, less threatening, less raising possible red flags, right? Like think about this. If someone that you didn't know sent you a message and they want to talk to you, what would they have to say to convince you to say yes? And yeah, you can come and talk to me, right? If you suspect that they were selling anything, they're trying to sell you on something, that would probably be a turnoff right there. Like, no dice. No, you're probably trying to sell me this. So if they said, oh, I work in sales for this company, right? I'd like to talk to you, right? That would probably be a turnoff for most people. Like, you're going to sell me something that company makes, right? So start by thinking of what someone would have to say to you to get you to, meet with them. Like if someone said, listen, I know that you do this kind of work. I know that you know about this, okay? I would love to know about that. I want to learn about that. You have the information I'm looking for. I'd love to be able to just learn from you. Would it be possible if we could meet up and I could ask you a few questions about this? Would that be okay? I'm a student, or, like whatever, right? Like what would it take, right? Like think about that. That's the way you have to start thinking. If somebody says, hey, I see that you've done this, I think that's fantastic. I would love to be able to do that. I'm in the process of learning how to do it. Would you be able to spare me just 30 minutes of your time? I could ask you some questions. I'd love to hear about how you did that. Something like this, right? Like now maybe more people would be like, I could maybe spare, this person is already making me feel good. I feel good about myself. They make me feel like I've really achieved something great, So like I feel good already, like, interacting with this person. And all they're asking for is just 30 minutes of my time. Like maybe I could swing that, right? So that's the world that we're stepping into, right? It's not about fooling people. It's not about doing anything slimy. It's just about, you're learning like how to interact with people, like basic communication, So that's the world you have to step into. It's a great skill to learn. It will serve you well throughout the entire rest of your career, and as I say, usually your life. So anyway, yeah. What was I talking about? I think I was talking about the hidden job market or something. Anyway, these are all kind of things that are part of it. But as you can see, there's a lot of different concepts here. There's a lot of things going on. Since people were talking about my course, that's kind of where I tried to put all that stuff in a logical way. But no pressure to buy my course. I'm just saying, like that's where I talked about all of it. I do have videos on separate topics like within this that are on my YouTube channel. Okay, let's see here. So I answered the Pearl thing about like trying it once. Yeah. And most people are not going to respond. Some people don't check their LinkedIn or check their email, or they get 100 emails a day and it's just like, I can't deal with 100 emails a day. I just have to essentially delete 80 of them. If it's someone I don't know, just delete, because I can't deal with that much communication every single day. Maybe that's it. It's not like they actively rejected you. It's just, that's what was going on. Bye says, hi, do you have specific tips for students seeking internships? Well, everything I said applies for internships. If you know who's in charge of deciding internships, ideally, I would say go talk to them. Don't send them an email. Don't phone them up. Go talk to them. And be pleasant, be friendly. Show that you're like passionate about like, I really think that internship is really cool. I would love to put myself forward for it. How do I do it? Could you explain briefly the process for me? And then you would ask them questions like, does the internship do this? Like, do you guys ever take students that come from this background? Do you rotate people within that organization, or do you just have them in one position for the entire duration of the internship? Like, ask them a bunch of questions about it. Show you're interested. Get them talking about it. And, at the end, you could say, would it make sense for me to apply? Like, I'm thinking of doing this and this and this. Would it make sense for me to apply? Like, get them engaging on it. And you will learn about it, and they will also really like you. Okay. And then after that, if you ever have questions about it during the application, you can always call them up. You maybe end the interaction by saying, okay, great, I will apply for that. If I have any questions along the way, is it okay if I were to give you a call? Would that be okay? And most of the time they'll say yes. And there you go. So, I mean, just that one little interaction will answer a whole bunch of questions, make them very favorable, make them see your passion, make them amenable to you being in the internship. You'll learn all the process and you'll have a contact, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, just that one interaction can do a lot of good things for you. Happy and lucky. Do you consult resume review? How do we reach you? Well, people suggested I do this, and then I did 3 videos in a row starting last week about resumes, and they're not very popular. So either they're terrible videos or there just isn't a huge demand. And no, I don't consult on resumes. I can talk about it if people have specific questions, but oh, it's my friend Kim Jellin. I was thinking of buying a course as a gift. Okay. Yeah, if that accomplishes the goals of whoever you're buying it for, I mean, I won't say no, but you don't want to do it if it's not going to serve their purpose or they're not interested in learning that specific stuff. So just make sure that, it makes sense before you do that. But it's a great sentiment from my perspective anyway. Happy and Lucky. Thank you again for all this information. Is Indeed and Glassdoor great resource to find the hiring manager? Or are there other sites? Well, no, they're not. You don't use those to find hiring managers. The best tool is basically LinkedIn. Like of any tool online, it would be things like LinkedIn. And they're not going to call themselves hiring manager. That's not going to be their title. Okay. They're going to have an actual job title, like manager of, the accounting department, right? Or divisional controller, or, I don't know, shop manager, plant manager. They're going to have titles like that, depending on what it is, right? Anybody that's in charge of people has potential to be a hiring manager. They could potentially be looking for new employees to add to their team, right? Like that's almost everybody on things like LinkedIn. Everyone except people like right at the very bottom. Everybody on there could potentially be a hiring manager, right? So they're hidden in plain sight, okay? But that being said, look, I don't want to give you the wrong impression here. I'm not just saying go out and contact anybody and say anything to anyone. It's like there is a bit of a protocol that, because a lot of people, especially in the mid managers, they're too busy to really take queries from the public. And, it's not really their part of their job to take queries from outside of their company, right? So you've got to know a bit how this stuff works. Okay. And it's people that are higher up, like at the executive level or at the very least upper middle management, that where this stuff actually really works, because it's part of their job to take unsolicited queries from the public. So if somebody contacts you that's outside your organization, outside your company, you don't know who the hell they are. They could be anybody. They just sent you a message, can you talk to me? I'd like to ask you some questions about this, right? Or whatever. It's not part of it, like it's only those people at the top. It's part of their job, because this person that's contacting you, they could be the media, they could be a potential business partner, they could be potential vendor, supplier, wholesaler, distributor, whatever. Like person, they could be a government regulator. Like you have no idea. So it's part of their job to take those, and they can't just ignore them and say, what, how did you get this number? Why do you want to talk to me? No, I'm not going to give you an interview. Like that's not doing their job if they behave like that, right? And it's very bad for business, right? So it's part of their job to take those. However, the flip side is that there's also a certain protocol you need to observe when contacting people through those channels. Okay. You can't just be like, I'm a student, I just graduated. Can you give me a job? Like that just, you will not get a response to that. You know what I mean? So, there's a few things to learn. So, it's too big of a topic for me to break it all down here. It would take hours and hours, but you learn this stuff just by interfacing with people. Like in your career, you deal with bosses, you deal with managers, you start out not knowing any of this. And then after you've worked for, say, 10 years in your industry, you'll know a lot of this. How to talk to people higher up, what's appropriate, what's the cordial thing to say, what the protocol is. You will know all this. It's kind of like that. Okay? But you start by learning, okay? Learn all you can about it. And there's other ways into the hidden job market. I mean, if you have contacts at companies, you could do it that way, right? There's not like one way. There's many different ways into this. But that's where a lot of the great jobs are. It's about surfacing those. Anyway, sorry, I went off on another tangent again. God, I'm just going bug-eyed looking at this tiny little feed. Also, I've been on here for an hour and a half. I'm going to need to wrap this up soon. I'm going to try and get to the end of these questions first. Okay, where did I leave off here? Okay, did that one. Pearl. Okay, did that one. Bye-bye, did that one. Okay, happy and lucky says, thank you again for all this great information. Is Indeed and Glassdoor, did I do this one? Is Indeed and Glassdoor a great resource to find the hiring manager? Yeah, I responded to that one. They're not. LinkedIn. Yankee Shot says, my company didn't give me a good appraisal or increment after they promoted me. I guess not much of a promotion then. I put down, they didn't give you a good appraisal, but they promoted you. I put down my notice, and now they want to pay me double the package. I have your thoughts about this. Yeah, it's a bluff. That's common. It's a bluff. You see, everybody feels they deserve more money. Everybody feels that they deserve to be promoted or recognized or get something for their hard work. That's normal. Now, managers, knowing this, they can't just, like if an employee comes to you and says, like, I deserve more money, you would like to be able to just say, okay, here you go. Here, have more money. You would like all your employees to be paid a lot, and yourself. You might not want them to be paid more than you because you have greater responsibility than they do, so you feel that you should be paid more than them. But in a perfect world, there'd be so much money to go around. You would be making a ton of money, and all your workers would be paid very well so that they're all motivated. When you say something, they say, yes, sir, and they do it. You know what I mean? Like that's what you want. The problem is that they can't do that. They can't just, usually budgets are very tight. So, they can't just pay everyone. If you ask for more money, they can't just say yes. So you have to make it painful for them. I hate to say it, but it's true. And one way you can make it painful is if you threaten to quit, right? Now, a lot of times, just the threat doesn't do anything because they've heard it all before, And so if you're actually a very good employee that does do really good work and they don't want to lose you, and you do happen to be actually underpaid for what you're doing, then if you actually quit, they will call you on the phone and say, wait. Okay, come back. Okay, you got your money, right? They just assumed it was a bluff. They were calling your bluff. And it turns out it wasn't a bluff. You were willing to leave. So that's what's going on there. That's normal manager behavior, unfortunately. And normal manager behavior is responding to normal employee behavior to always go back to your boss and say, I want more money. I feel I deserve more money. Even the worst employees do that. This is what we get, right? And there's other things too. Your boss can't give a promotion to the worst employee and not also give promotions to the better employee. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things going on here. So this is what informs this behavior, okay? Listen, at the end of the day, you got to do the right thing for yourself, okay? So if you are, a highly valuable employee that's underpaid or you're exploited, go out and find a better job, okay? Get that offer in your hand. And then you have the option of going back to your boss and saying, I need this amount of money or I have to give you my notice. I'll give you till tomorrow to get back to me. How does that sound? And if they say, no, sorry, you're like, okay, no problem. So I will send you an email that this is my 2 weeks notice. Okay. So that's coming. So no problem. I very much have enjoyed working here. Have yourself a great day. Right now, that's what you do. And then you have a better offer in your hand. So you're doing what's good. Now, if they can match it, great. Okay. But there's other things at play here too. Don't tell them where your other offer is from. Don't tell them what your other offer is. Just say, I need this. Or I give you 2 weeks notice, or whatever the notice is that you have to give. Okay? Right? That's doing the best thing for yourself. If you genuinely are underpaid and exploited, do that. You should be able to do that. People will pay you your worth if that is indeed your value. You know what I mean? So you don't have to stay there and put up with this. Okay. But the problem is everybody, and I mean literally everybody, they always believe that they are underpaid. They're more valuable than they actually are. Some people genuinely are more valuable than what they are, but a lot of people aren't. They just have this ego where they assume they are, or they think they are, and they're not. So, this is how you handle that. Okay. Yeah, and I know how it feels. I mean, early in my career, I worked for some big blue chip companies, and they totally exploited you. They exploited you. They brainwashed you, and they prey upon young people, young green people coming right out of school that haven't had jobs before, haven't had career jobs before. So you can pull the wool over their eyes, and you can say, no, this is normal, and you're paid well for what you do. Which is all completely bogus. Not to date myself, but it's completely false, entirely false. It's just an outright lie, which they lie to you right through their teeth. And a lot of young people just take them at their word and go, okay, this is all I'm worth, and I'll stay here. Other ones that are a little bit more skeptical, a bit more free thinking, they look for proof of that. So okay, if what I did is they pulled that on me in the very first career job I had. And after a year and a half or something, I went literally across the street to their competitor and did the same job for nearly double the compensation. Same job. Nearly double the compensation. After they assured me that no, we pay market price, and you're paid well for what you do. It's okay, see ya. So I mean, that kind of stuff still goes on today. That's always gone on and always will go on. So, do what's right for you, right? This is how the system works. If they want your loyalty costs money. Oh, okay. Look at this. Is this the next one? Where was the next one? Yankee Shots. Yeah, Yankee Shots. I have your thoughts about this. I was able to double my salary by following your advice. Yes. Well, good. I'm happy for you. That's great. And thanks for sharing, Yellow 89. Reminds me of the man with the yellow hat. Happy and lucky. Does ageism exist in your opinion? Of course it does. If you're going to hire a cocktail waitress, how many 90-year-old cocktail waitresses do you see getting jobs? Not that many. How many 21-year-old CEOs of blue chip companies do you see? Not many. Right? Of course it exists. Companies prefer young people, not necessarily. How many young executives do you see? Not many. They prefer young people for crappy jobs, yes. Partly for one of the reasons is what I just explained, because you can lie to them and they'll believe you. Somebody that's more my age, you got in your 50s and pushing 60, it's they're not so easily fooled, right? Generally speaking. Companies prefer young people, but sometimes being mature hurts you. Yeah, and sometimes it gives you your job. If you're young, they look at you and go, how could that person possibly have good judgment? They look at someone who's just as smart or just as stupid, except that they're 55 years old, and they go, you must know what you're doing. You seem to be very mature and seasoned and experienced. I'm sure you're very wise and you can have, very good sense of judgment. and making business decisions, and they'll give you the job. Meanwhile, you're an idiot just like everyone else. So yes, it exists. But it depends what we're talking about. It works both ways. So just read an ad that prefers mature people with experience than young ones for entry level. Yeah, look, you can call it what kind of, like maybe I'm on dangerous ground here, because this sort of stuff starts to get very politically charged. But yes, people have preferences. Sometimes their preferences are based on something real and logical. Other times they're based on stupidity. You know what I mean? You're going to encounter that anywhere. But the way you get around ageism is if there's somebody, let's say you're old or say you're young, go to a place where the boss is round about the same age as you. And you can be sure that age is taken out of the equation. If you're a 21-year-old, you're going to look more favorably on 21-year-olds. If you're a 65-year-old, you're going to look more favorably at 65-year-olds in general, right? So that's how you can take age out of the equation if that's like a huge concern for you. Julia says, we love your monologues. Please keep talking. Thank you, Julia. That means a lot. I know I can go off, and I'm not a very good speaker, especially extemporaneously, and I realize that. That's always been my handicap. That's been my worst area when it comes to executive and leadership skills. But thank you. Can you show us a room tour? Sure, yeah, why not? It's gloriously unimpressive, but so this is my office. I got some stuff on the wall. And there's an engineering degree, MBA. Yes, I'm selling an MBA course, but I do have an MBA myself. Yes, people were wondering about that. Other wall, I got more crap on the wall. That's my office. I got a window, and the window is closed right now with the blinds. My desk used to be an actual desk. Now all it is like a platform for all this multimedia stuff. It's, I had this wonderful giant desk that I wanted for years, and I finally got it. And now it's just sort of, after you put 2 monitors and a mic arm and some cameras and lighting and everything, it's not really much of an office anymore. Fortunately, I moved away from some of the in-person consulting I was doing. So, this is basically just a place to shoot videos almost and do work. So, but there you go. I'm sure that was impressive. Okay, I'm going to try and quickly finish up some of these questions because I gotta get rolling. Happy and Lucky says, is it good to use temp agencies to fill in gaps in employment, and what agencies do you recommend? I don't recommend any agencies. They can be useful if you fit into like a specific standard job. So like, let's say, you are an accountant, you have certifications in accounting, you have your accounting license certification, you're part of the Association of Accountants. You can go to a temp agency if they're just looking for accountants for like a week, at this business or whatever. That can work. If you don't fit into like a standard job quite so easily, I don't think a lot of temp agencies really make sense. So you tend to get temp agencies around standard jobs like lawyers, engineers, accountants, bookkeeper, like things like that. Maybe even marketing, I'm not sure. But they tend to be very sort of job specific. So if you fit into that, great. They can maybe open up some doors for you. So they have a function, but for a lot of people, they won't really apply, or they may not fit ideally. Richard Black says, just realized you were live. Wanted to just say thanks for the great advice and keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much, Richard. That's very kind of you to say that. And I appreciate you taking the trouble to do so. Bye-bye says, thank you. You're absolutely welcome. Serge says, why is this man in HR? I'm not in the HR industry. I'm a manager. I'm a former CEO. I worked my way up. and ran a small company. And I never worked in HR directly, but I've hired people, and I've hired recruiters to fill positions and things like this. And I've also, just as a totally separate thing, after that career, I went back to academia and taught some courses in the local university here and in a different local college that had to do with HR. They were looking for someone to teach HR. And I mean, I could teach at that level. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And then I became the guy who teaches HR. So, but yeah, I've never actually worked as a recruiter. I'm not pretending that I have. But I've worked with recruiters, and I've done like what you guys have done, where I've had to get jobs through recruiters when I was, I think, in my 20s and 30s. What do you think of quotas when getting hired? I don't think any quotas are good. The only quota you would have would be dictated by your business needs. So, whatever that is. But once again, very politically charged question. So I mean, it's like saying, what do you think about limitations in hiring? Well, it's like, it depends what the limitation is. Sometimes the limitation makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. It depends what we're talking about. But arbitrary limits, like saying you must have 16 employees in this department, regardless of the amount of work you have for them, I think is stupid. I think anyone would conclude that. Right? And besides, who gives a crap what I think? What matters is the reality. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but Kyriakos says, hello, everyone. I have a question about the interview. They told me as a feedback a couple of times that I don't look so passionate for the position. Can I ask how is to show passion in a good way? This is something you need to practice with other people. First of all, there's always the chance that they're full of crap. Okay, so that's always like I don't know what the details of the situation here. Maybe that's just an excuse for why they just couldn't hire you. Maybe you see, looking at this from the other side of the table, you have 10 candidates that come in for an interview for one position. More than one of those candidates, sometimes all 10, you'd like to hire them. They're qualified, they're friendly, you get along with them. They could all do it, The problem is that you can only hire one. And so it's sometimes hard to justify why you didn't hire this person. It's like, look, if I had 2 positions to fill, I would have hired you, but I only had one, So sometimes, sometimes they feel they have to justify it and give a reason and say, this is what was wrong with you. There might not have been anything wrong with you. So they say it's very common to get like some BS excuse that isn't real. And they'll just say that, and it's like an easy sort of kiss off. So there's always that. Now, let's pretend now for a second this is true. Okay, how to show that you're passionate. Well, first of all, obviously a lot of it is body language. You got to be able to talk about it and seem interested. If you talk like this, yeah, I'm interested in this job because, you get to do math, which, I like. Like if that's how you talk to somebody, maybe that's the problem. On the other hand, if you show up there and you don't know anything about the company, you don't know what they do, you don't know any of the nature of the work involved, you haven't bothered to learn, to even go to the company's website to learn like what they actually do, what's the product they make, who are their competitors, is this their head office or this is just a branch office? How long have they been in business? Have they been around for 100 years or they just started last year? Like if you don't know any of that stuff, that probably indicates that, you're probably not super, super excited about that company, right? So doing little things like that can help to convince someone that you're actually interested, right? If you tell them in the interview, they say, why do you want this job? And you say something like, well, first of all, you said you're looking for all these things. that I got. So already you got my attention. But number two, I noticed that you guys are in this business. You make this product. I think that's terribly exciting because that product, it's the innovation in this industry is really, really going through the roof right now. I think that's terribly exciting. I know that your competitors are coming out with this type of product with these features, and you guys are presumably trying to counter with this and then taking the next step. I think that's terribly exciting. I think there's a lot of potential in adapting that technology to this type of product, for this industry. We've seen it in this other industry. We've seen it in this other industry. I think it could really open doors here. And I think there's a lot of potential. And I would like to be right in the center of that. If you said something like that, they're probably going to conclude, okay, you seem to be interested in this and you know a fair bit about it. And that makes sense, So putting all of those together is probably a good start, I would say. Yankee Shots says, thanks for all the advice. You're absolutely welcome, Yankee Shots. And same to bye-bye, if I'm saying that right. Anyway, that's the end of the chat. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. I will be back on Wednesday with my latest sort of live stream where we talk about executive leadership and, how to be an executive. I think that is the title of the next episode. It's the episode 3 in that series. So if you're interested in that, you have ambitions to, be at that level, learn some of those skills. That's what I'm going to be talking about on Wednesday. Other than that, I will be back with another episode of this, How to Get Hired, next Monday. So join me for that if you are still struggling with stuff. I wish you all the best of luck. I know that when we're between jobs, it can be very discouraging. It can be one of the lowest points in our lives. We feel the most unsure of ourselves. We feel that we have the least confidence that we've ever had in our lives, lowest self-esteem. So not easy, but don't worry. This is a process where, first of all, the road is long. It's a marathon, and you will get there. And secondly, it's a skill like any other, and you can learn it, and you can master it, and that's what we're here for. So join me next week for the next installment of How to Get Hired. Thank you so much. Take care.